Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're discussing City on a Hill, Season 2, Episode number 7. We've only got one left. The show is almost over. If you've not hit the sub button or the bell, please do so. We will be doing the season finale review next weekend. Check that out. Leave a comment, leave an upvote. That really helps push the video. A lot of other stuff on the channel. Mayor of Easttown, for instance. Check that out. Great show. Big Sky, we've only got a few left of those. It did, in fact, get picked up for a season 2. Oh, boy. City on a Hill has not officially been picked up for a third season, nor has it been canceled. So we don't know if they're waiting for the announcement or if they're still trying to make their decision. But as of this recording, this moment, a decision has not been reached. I checked into that before we started recording. So with that in mind, this episode had a lot of sort of endings and reveals, but it also had a lot of setup for what clearly would be a season 3 storyline. Let's start with Anton's story, because the Campbell story seems to be winding down. I think we'll get obviously some somewhat closure next episode, but basically Grace was put in a situation where she loves her community. She's done everything in her power to help people around her. But the thing she loves more is her sons. They are everything to her, and she has done everything in her power to protect them. It comes to a point where she can't protect them anymore. She does decide to make a deal for herself. I don't blame her. She turns Anton in. But unfortunately, in the process, Anton is essentially, the way it was shot, and we'll discuss the details of this, essentially executed. And now there seems to be somewhat of a police cover-up situation. DeCourcy, even though he's frustrated, and we're going to talk a lot about him later, he's pissed off, but at the same time, he can't stand for that. DeCourcy's a good guy. And he's like, no, we need to investigate this cop, figure this out. Grace is now very frustrated. It's a lot going on. She finally got Kelvin in the hospital. He's recovering. But in terms of the Anton storyline, just wherever you guys want to talk about.
Well, to me, there was a lot of revelation. You look at Anton when he was talking to his mom, and they were talking about school, and they went back and forth how he defended his brother and how his mom was just like, family always comes first. And then the revelation that she basically ratted him out and basically set this up so that he could get captured. It was one of those things where it was so well done, and we always praise the writing of several of these shows that we watch, while other times completely demolishing the other ones. But this one was just done so well. We always talk about the parallels of the different storylines and how they kind of match up. I really love this because you looked at the two different sides of the law too, because you look at what DeCourcy stands for and you look what Jackie stands for, and we all know that Jackie's not the most stand-up individual, but all the things that he's done to basically help get someone like Anton taken care of, it leaves you in that gray area. It's fucked up, but is the world a better place because Anton's gone? Yes. How it was accomplished? Not so much.
Yeah, and Anton definitely should have stood trial, but this cop was just hell bent on revenge. I believe it's the same cop that he had that fist fight with early in the season when he got arrested. Yeah, and his partner's covering for him, and but the thing is, like I believe that Grace not only made this deal for herself, but potentially for her youngest son and everything. She wanted him to get medical attention and potentially, for all we know, to clear his name of any wrongdoing. That may be the case. So we still got one more episode. Maybe he'll go to trial as well. But I think it may have also been to save him as well. And and it's also due to a lot of guilt, because this whole time she's been defending their innocence, and for all she knew, it was a setup. They were trying to, ruin her community action group and everything. As far as she knows, it was a way to get her, through getting her sons. Like, but now that she was faced with the truth of what Anton was, and the fact that like she, in a very real way, put her youngest son in even more danger by not, admitting to herself what Anton was doing. Like she could have helped one, before he got shot. This could have never happened if she just accepted that. So I think she saw it also as, especially once her son admitted to her what was going on in the car, that she was, by pretending that nothing was going on, she was in a way destroying a family that she was trying to save.
Yeah. Going back to the walk, like you were saying, Spencer, when she goes to get Anton and he's got, I got breakfast. If you watched her face the entirety of that scene, you see her slowly breaking down all the way
Mhm.
up until the cops show up. Like the entirety of the scene, So yeah, the performance there was outstanding. And at first I thought she also made a deal for her son, but then the preview appeared to show like he was going to be put on trial. So I'm not completely sure. We'll have to wait till next week to see exactly what the details of her deal was, but yeah, she was trying to get him medical attention. I do know. Maybe lesser charges is the goal. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and here,
they weren't real clear on it. They weren't real clear as to what they were even offering for Calvin. It was basically just, hey, you can't put him on trial so that he can seek medical attention. You can't use him seeking medical attention to arrest him. But they never really went into what the deal was. It was basically everybody scot free except for Anton. But DeCourcy, when he went to go talk to his boss, he was like, "Man, that's not right." And it wasn't real clear what they settled on. So I think we'll get some of that information next week.
Because we know, they were going to wipe away the stealing the money because that was a federal charge. It would have put her in prison. That was going to go away. And then the alibi, she was, I guess, going to say they were just going to expunge it like it never happened with Anton. Those are the two things I'm pretty sure went through. Everything else, I'm not sure.
yeah, everything's pretty uncertain, and like, and so and I imagine it'll be a big reveal, whatever it is, because they're saving it for next episode. So we'll see what happens to him as far as the court system is concerned and everything, and you know, like you said, the Campbell story is over. Well, I still feel like Grace may be a pretty big player in this story herself. Like, while Anton, of course, isn't. Grace is likely very angry about the outcome of all this, and that will likely play a significant role in next season.
Similar to Kathy, like that'll be the carryover. I agree, especially if Shaban is pursuing a political career. I think Grace is going to be involved in that plot line a great deal.
Yeah, she'll likely be a major roadblock to Shaban, because as we were hearing towards the end of this episode, the community is still very much in Grace's corner.
I think until depending on what they bring Calvin up on, the Anton getting shot, it depends on how they spin it. If they're able to be like he was a victim of the system and not this murdering piece of shit, it would depend on how Grace's attorney and stuff was able to spin it. I think also Shaban, after what happened to her, like her mom's like, fuck Grace Campbell, take her out.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if Shaban's going to get on the same side of that. And then her political career may be based off of her trying to bury Grace as opposed to help her. So I am curious as to if that becomes, like you said, Brian, the sub story next season, or if that is something that's equally as important. I think that, like you said, I think it'll be the Kathy story next season, whereas the IRA stuff will be the big stuff next season.
That's what I think. I think the IRA story will be the big one. Like, but yeah, and I imagine Grace will spin this whole thing, as they may say, oh, your son's a murderer, your son's this, he's that, and she may say, well, we'll never know because my son never made it to trial. And that's one way to spin it in the community's eyes and to kind of salvage her reputation, if anything.
I don't think her reputation will be damaged either way because it will, even if they go after the young girl's death, which I'm assuming will come up next week. Um, I I think Grace will still be okay. Now, I have one thought on that. Now, remember the guy that she threw out like at the beginning of the season?
Mm-hmm.
We had said back then, I think Spencer or maybe you, Larry, was like that might come back.
Yeah, we
Or
were
maybe
we were all thinking that. Yeah.
so maybe there's a wild card. Maybe there's another element, something like that. Maybe not. I don't know. Where somebody will come in and be like, no, forget Grace. She's bad and blah blah blah. I don't know. But that was something that we thought about back then. Like, maybe she does have enemies. In other words,
She
And-
does. She does.
And they're community people. It's not this, cop that's trying to keep her down. It's somebody from her own community that could be her undoing.
Yeah, and I think Grace will get an idea that there are dangers that she can't deal with the way that she thinks she can, now that Calvin is gone. Because some of those people only left her alone because, not Calvin, Anton, because he didn't want to deal with Anton, you know. Like, so are people like the gentleman we mentioned before, are they going to be a huge issue for Grace in next season?
this was a dense hour of entertainment. I'm pretty sure next week's will be as well. There's a lot of story that they'll need to cover. And as far as where Siobhan's going to be in this whole situation, I don't know yet. We see that DeCourcy is pissed. She lost the child. DeCourcy has this breakdown in the alleyway, beating up the stroller. He's angry, but at the same time, DeCourcy's a good guy. He's still, even though he's angry, even though he hates Anton, he feels and knows Anton was basically executed, and he can't stand for that. And he, has the scene with Jackie in the bar where he's just like, he's dead, and sort of what he wanted, but he feels bad about it because he knows it was unjust. And Jackie, of course, is like, who gives a shit? Because that's Jackie.
You're right.
But I don't know yet where she's gonna fall yet. I think we'll know next week. Like I said in the trailer, we see she seems emotional and she's going through, different things. Their relationship's going through a lot right now, and so I don't know. Is she gonna want revenge, or is she going to agree with him and say, you know what? Yeah, this is unjust, and we gotta step up and actually help Grace in this situation. I don't know, and that would be an interesting twist.
That's a rough one because, like you said, is she going to be the one that's taking Grace's family side, not necessarily Grace herself, but the Anton's injustice, or is she going to go the other way and be like, nah, fuck him?
That's what I'm saying. It could go either way. I don't know.
That's a very interesting plot point where it's very up in the air. Like it could literally go either way.
Anybody feel like there was some kind of, I don't know, a branding deal with whatever company makes that stroller, because there wasn't one dent on that thing.
It looked expensive, man. I was like, my first thought was, I mean, like obviously the scene was to show his frustration. I got it. But I'm like, that thing is expensive. Why didn't you give it to somebody? Like he's like, I'm going to take it down to the dump. I'm like, what the hell, man? your $3,000 stroller. But yeah, it was. I was impressed.
Must be nice to have that DeCourcy money.
Well, the actor, he did that. He could hurt. I mean, if you watch it, he was flinging it and he was kicking it and everything. And
I was waiting for him to break his damn ankle or something.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you could get hurt doing that shit. So they just pulled the camera back and said, "Beat the shit out of that thing. Get your anger out," and he did it. No stunt man. Let's see here. I love this next scene. It's so Jackie. Let's get in. We're shifting gears here, going into some Jackie territory. There's a lot of Jackie in this episode. The dinner scene with Faust. So Benny's got a boyfriend, and they're possibly going to be in school together. And he's coming over to dinner, and he Jackie's being Jackie at the dinner table. And then they go outside, and Jackie's like, "What would you do if I hit you?" And he just punches the shit out of this kid, and he punches Jackie back, and that's exactly what he wanted. He's like, "Good, you can throw a punch. I need someone to defend my daughter." And then Faust is like, looking at him like, "You're insane." And Jackie's like, "Hey, this is how I roll." I love the scene
See,
because it's
I
simple,
thought
but it's very
in the nut.
Jackie. I couldn't tell.
I
It
thought
was
he
it was
Jackie
low.
nut.
It was low.
It was a nut shot, but it was great.
Yeah. I thought he punched him in the gut or something like, but yeah, it was very much a Jackie thing to do. Either way, because Jackie's that kind of dad, that would pull some crap like that, and then just kind of be pleased with the result that the kid hit him back.
The Ginny and Maeve. Oh no. So so let me get. We didn't talk about this before the recording, so I want to get your guys' fresh take. Maeve needs money.
Mm-hmm.
Ginny gives her $5,000. Doyle he's freaking out. He goes to Jackie about this and hints that the money might be for guns. Now, Maeve's story is that she abandoned the IRA. Maybe not. She's either working with or against. And the implication is she needed the money for weapons. Either way, this is some dangerous shit. Jackie, he says it properly. He's like, we gave that terrorist money. This is going to go horribly wrong. I'm very curious to what Maeve's angle is, what is true, what is not true. Doyle looks terrified. Jackie makes it clear to Jenny how much IRA influence is in Boston, and he's like, you can't be fucking with this. So that is clearly, like we said, they can't resolve that in one episode. That's clearly something being built for a third season. What do you guys think? Do you think she's still loyal, not loyal? Where do you think this is going?
It's odd because we don't know enough about the father. What's his Doyle?
Doyle.
We don't know enough about him yet. So it's funny because it almost seems like they're not on the same side. So I don't know, because the IRA was the Catholic and the Protestant rule and like all this stuff. So I don't know if Maeve is playing the anti-IRA stuff, like where she used to be a part of them, or if she's been against the IRA the whole time and is coming after Doyle. Like, I don't know which side of the coin she's playing. I don't. I love the fact that that's like this underlying mystery. Like, we don't really know 100% what's going on just yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's still a little vague, but we've got a bigger picture, and we know that that's going to probably wind up being the big conflict here. But what I think is happening, what I think has been happening, is that that Father Doyle, that where she stands with him. I think the story that she's been handing, what is
Jenny.
Jenny Rohr. Yeah, the story she's been handing her is actually Father Doyle's story, and that she's still IRA and she's caught up with him, which is why we see them spending so much time together. And when we had those conversations where he pulls her aside after she's talked to Jenny, it's because he's asking her to leave them alone. And in fact, I believe we do get a scene where he asks her not to mess with the Roars, and she does it anyway. And I think that's why. I think Father Doyle was the one who got out of the IRA, and saw perhaps even joining the priesthood as his only way out. And she's taking advantage of this situation.
It's very, very possible. There's a lot we don't know, and yes, I 100% agree that there's way more to his backstory that we're not aware of, and I agree with that. And in terms of what Maeve's exact angle is, I'm still not completely sure, but I do feel that she's playing Jenny. Now, how I'm not completely sure, but she is. Like I said, they're not going to have enough time to really dig deep into this in one episode. So hopefully, yeah, man, if they don't pick this up, I'll be very, very irritated.
Yeah, definitely.
I hate this part when you get in a show and you're approaching the end of a season and they've not yet, renewed it. Very
Especially
frustrating.
when they've built a plot line like this, and it's, there's all these little seeds planted, and if they're not going to follow up on this, that would be that'd be very annoying, and especially if there's a cliffhanger related to it towards the end of this season. If
Yeah,
we have a big cliffhanger next episode, yeah, that would be rough.
I think there will be. um, there was also a scene where Jackie's still, and they didn't really address it in this episode. Jackie's still ducking and dodging Karen and trying not to get kicked out. And remember, he agreed that once this whole Anton situation was dealt with, he would bow out and go to some nowhere area and just sit in an office for the remainder, I guess, of his until he retires. Um, that's not a Jackie thing. I don't see Jackie doing that. We see him. It looks like he's facing some kind of board for some kind of, I don't know, investigation, or I don't know. It's in the previous split second. Where does Jackie get drummed out, or well, what's going to happen with Jackie? In terms of his career, it's been sort of an underlying storyline.
Well, I don't. The way that with what happened this episode, I don't know if that's a culminating story, like it's all the things that have happened leading up to this, or if it's directly related to everything that happened with Grace. Because, the pulling the gun on Grace, there's a lot of things that happened during this, and the fact that Anton got shot. And although it wasn't Jackie clearly that did it because of where his position was, is that cop going to basically, because that cop and Jackie don't like each other. So is that cop going to try and be like, well, Jackie told me to do it, or did something else happen? And is this all related to the Grace Campbell thing, or is this basically just all his skeletons coming out like, hey, there's an awful lot of things that could have came up with Jackie.
Yeah, there's so many things it could be, but I think that Jackie's boss is, using how everything went down in this episode against him. I think that's what's happening, because the whole Anton situation would be another thing, check mark, that she could just use to either, like you said, send him somewhere quiet to do some paperwork, or just get rid of him altogether potentially, and just list it as another one of his failures. So chances are that's how she's going to use it.
I love that Jenny takes the money from their getaway stash. He's like, that's our getaway money. She's like, why do we have to have getaway money? But the fact that Jackie has an exit plan,
right,
is great. I mean, it's his character.
I think the money, though, she said, came from their joint bank account. She's like, I didn't touch any of our getaway money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is still even funnier. The fact that she was like, look, I didn't touch our runaway nest egg for when you finally get caught for doing all the crooked shit you've done.
Right.
We get finally confirmation, but no details. Frankie is dead. It's in the opening little thing that Kathy's been keeping it from her kids. We see the death certificate. I have no idea what happened. I didn't freeze frame it and try to read the screen. I thought about it and I was like, it's pretty small print. I'm not going to try. Kik finds out. She's also aware that her mom's in the drug trade. That's a whole situation. Kathy's still doing the drug stuff. I don't know where this story goes. Where else can it go at this point? I don't know, because okay, she's dealing. We have the interaction where she's basically doing in the street, selling and kick. I said Frankie's dead. I don't know where the Kathy story goes. Do you guys think they're gonna wrap it up, or is what would be the next piece of her story?
I don't know now, because they're not going to use her to incriminate Anton. There's no point now. Like he's
Yep.
dead. So I don't know if this is basically going to show her rise on that end of the drug trade, or if it's, Kick is somehow going to get involved, or if Kathy dies and then you're going to have to see Kick trying to raise the rest of her, the rest of the kids to where she ends up being part of it. Like that, I think there's a lot of angles they could play. Some of them are much darker and rougher, but it reminds me of The Wire. Like there's a couple storylines that could similarly play out just like The Wire. So,
Well, you
yeah,
make a point with the Campbells out of the equation, Anton gone. Maybe there's a power vacuum and she figures a way to fill it. I don't know.
Well, I think, and we never went back and looked at this, but there was one thing you mentioned, Brian. The person that she's getting the drugs from now. What was his accent? And if it's potentially, because like I think one of you mentioned last episode that it sounded like an Irish accent to you, and if it did, then
It gave me I couldn't completely tell, but yeah, it definitely was an accent.
like if that's the case, then her story may play into the whole IRA story.
yeah, they might tie them together.
Yeah, and that would make sense. That would be an interesting thing because clearly the drug stuff is her link to staying in this show. Because
Well,
like I
yeah.
said, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, and if that's the case, then chances are, if anybody's getting caught, and if their operation is as airtight as it may be, like she'd once again be someone that DeCourcy or Jackie would try to use as an informant next season.
Yeah. Like I said, there's only one episode left. Any thoughts on, or what do you want to happen in the next episode? In terms of just any plot line. Like I said, they've not confirmed a third season. So how do you wrap this up? How do you end this season in which, if there's not a third one, you're like, okay, I'm okay with that. Is there a way, or do you think that's not possible?
At this point, they've set up so much stuff with the IRA storyline. I don't know that they could tie it up and leave me satisfied with it. I think there's way to end certain storylines where I'm like, okay, they could do, like, if they weren't given a green light and they said, say if they knew it was canceled, they could basically film like one of those little epilogue things where it's Grace was a member of the city council, blah blah blah. Like you could do it to where you film like one of those little epilogue things and show what everybody's story was after this. And I think that would be the only way that I could think. But you would have to know that you weren't coming back for that to even be a possibility to do that. So I don't know that there's a way to wrap everything up. But I still, regardless of whether it wrapped and tied all the storylines up, I would still tell people to watch it, because even if you get a couple cliffhangers at the end, the story, the writing, the journey is so good that I would still tell people to watch it.
Yeah, it is that good. It would be hard to wrap it up. There, like Spencer said, there are ways they could do that. Like for one, like the one major thing you'd absolutely have to wrap up is the whole conflict with Maeve of some kind. Whether you want to and you'd have to somehow do that without going deeper into the whole IRA thing. And if they did that and they did some sort of epilogue thing, like Spencer said, where it's like, Jackie and Jenny's daughter, what's her name, went to college, and DeCourcy and his wife went on to do whatever, that would be fine after that. But this Maeve story absolutely has to be wrapped up.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the loosest thread that they have.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some answers here soon as far as another season or not. And if not, it'd be nice if, this is a show I think that would be great as, give me a 2-hour movie, a special, and wrap up the storyline. That is about all I have. Is there anything else you want to say regarding episode 7 of season 2 of City on a Hill?
I can't think of anything. Like we've praised it before. It's so well done. I don't know if Game of Thrones really set this precedent, because I don't know of a lot of other shows doing it prior to Game of Thrones, where the big episode is always the one before the season finale. And then the season finale kind of gives you some breadcrumbs to the following season and ties up some loose ends. Like normally the season finale is when all the shit happens.
Snowfall did it this season.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The big episode is the one before the finale. So I think that the way this is set up, I'm really hoping that it gets picked up for another season, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. And it's it's hard to imagine this not getting picked up for one more season. It's just television that's that good, and if it doesn't, it'd be really disappointing.
Yeah, I agree.
I just read, because I just looked to see if it would get picked up. It said second season of City on a Hill averages a .04 rating.
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
Yeah, of 8 traffic.
But Showtime itself doesn't pull a huge number.
But it's down 33%.
Yeah.
But the way people watch shows now, to me, the biggest tell is not while it's airing. It's if it picks up steam afterwards. Because you look at, like we talk about Warrior, wanting to do maybe Warrior when that gets picked up for season 3, because HBO put it on HBO Max, and it was a Cinemax show, and everybody powered through it. I know you guys haven't yet, and I always suggest it because it's fucking amazing. But it's one of those things that now in the digital era, the week-to-week show is enough to get people to kind of log onto your subscription thing and want to try and pick it up. But a lot of people now wait until it's over, and then they just power watch it over a weekend. And I think that knowing how this show is, that to me would be the bigger demographic and the bigger tell whether or not it's being viewed post it being all wrapped up, or if it's not. Because if it's not, then I would understand it. But to me, the month after it's over is the biggest thing that they should have to look at.
Yeah, I agree. It's different now. Like you said, we have to look at streaming numbers. We have to look at, like you said, a week or two after it drops. I tell you guys all the time, we get comments on videos for shows that ended, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. People are just, in some cases, people are just getting into certain shows, or, the way we watch entertainment is different. And hopefully that plays into the decision for a season 3. Otherwise, if they go straight old school, ratings, it's not looking good.
Well, yeah, like you both said, it could play in a number of ways. They could sell the show to someone else. It could get popular on, let's say, a Netflix or anything, and we could get a season 3 that takes place several years later, and that still makes sense for the type of show that it is. So
you could put this show. There's nothing I'm thinking in this specifically season 2 that you couldn't have put on FX. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of content, being too adult. Not in season 2, nothing. So I could, they could maybe shop the show to another network if they didn't want it or something. I don't know, but we'll see. We shall see. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's all.
So what do you, the audience, what do you think is going to happen in the next episode? Will you be disappointed if it doesn't wrap up the IRA storyline, which we don't think it's possible to wrap up in one episode? We would love to get your thoughts in the comments below. Like I said, we appreciate everyone listening. Hit that up vote, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.